Hello, this is the front desk.
Welcome to episode 69 of the Crack and Backs podcast with your hosts, Dr. Terry Wyman and Dr. Spencer Barron. How you doing this morning, guys?
Buenos dias, Lance.
Lancey, what's up, my man?
Dear God. This is going to be very on the border today.
It is.
No pun intended. Today we're joined by Carlos Castellanos. Carlos, since 1983, has produced award-winning illustrations for a who's who of commercial clients, ad agencies, and major publishing houses. He is also the co-creator / artist of the popular nationally syndicated comic strip Baldo, the first Latino family comic strip syndicated in the U.S. by Universal Press Syndicate. How you doing this morning, Carlos?
I'm doing fantastic. That's a great intro. Who is that guy? I want to know him.
well, first he's got to say your last name like a South Floridian. Carlos Castellanos, man. Come on, man.
It only took you about 20 years to get it right, Spencer. Come on.
Only 20?
20? Well, I've only known him for, 45 years?
40 some odd years.
40-something years? Oh, my God. Jeez.
All right, Carlos. Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on, gentlemen.
Glad to be here. I already blew my all my Spanish lingo in the intro, so we're all good now. So I got to resort to my Anglo tongue.
That was impressive.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. You had, I was when I was doing some research on you, I found an old radio clip from way back when that gave a really, really cool stat that I had no idea. And the stat was that it's easier to become an astronaut in this country than to get a syndicated newspaper cartoon. And
yeah,
and that blew me away. So after learning that, how did that change for you? I mean, I know we're starting here, not in the back, but I gotta hear your story about that because that's amazing.
I'm glad you found that was an interesting stat. I kind of just made it up. I figured it'd be a good hook. So there is no data on that. I didn't do any much research on that. So I'm glad you found it interesting.
But it's got to be close to true, doesn't it?
No, it is kind of true. I mean, if you look at the numbers, I mean, to get syndicated, syndicates generally pick up like maybe 1 or 2 comic strips a year out of like 6,500 submissions. So if you do the numbers, it's easier to become an astronaut. Now, I don't know. It sounds good.
Yeah. Caught my attention.
Yeah.
But that seemed to have changed everything for you. And, Carlos, sometimes it's, I will say, I've known you since 7th grade. And
it's hard to believe.
And I'm telling you, you're one of my favorite people. And I just, celebrating your experience with Baldo is an understatement. I mean, it was the first Hispanic family syndicated comic strip ever. And, listen, why do you think that happened for you? How did that all come together?
Well, it launched in 2000, in the year 2000. So we've been out there for 22 years now. I think a lot of things, a lot of stars and moons aligned to get it going. It was, if you remember back in 2000, there was a lot of the Census Bureau numbers coming out on the whole Latino, Hispanic population growth. So there was a lot of that in the news during that 1999 and 2000. And so, a lot of that was part of it, is that, there was a lot of focus on it. Bring, of course, the experience that I had already had illustrating for, almost 20 some odd years. And then my partner's credentials in writing, bringing it all together and, right time, right place kind of thing.
It's funny. It's something that was so, so pivotal in your life. But I remember you you should have worked for Marvel. You're the quality of. I remember our yearbook staff had you do
Right.
superheroes for each section, and it was like the coolest thing ever. Yet, I you chose a different path that seemed to have like really blown up for you.
Yeah, in high school. Yeah, in high school, I remember doing a lot of. That's how I learned how to draw. Actually, collecting a lot of the Marvel comic books and stuff like that. So, those were my teachers, the artists for a lot of those comic books. So I learned how to draw faces and hands and stuff. Of course, I couldn't draw a normal person. They all looked like they were on steroids. And then the women, they looked like, well, trans. I mean, they were just like, they didn't look like women. They looked like women in face only. Because I didn't know how to draw anything other, without muscles. So, I learned how to draw that. But yeah, I mean, I looked into that career, and I actually, I wanted to become a comic artist. But after doing a little bit of research, I realized, it's a lot of competition, a lot of work. I mean, a lot of these guys that I used to like admire in comic books, extremely talented people. So, it's just like I never thought I'd be able to get there. And then I found out at some point what they got paid for. They got paid per page. I didn't like the numbers there, so I decided no.
Well, how did it all start? How did Baldo start?
Baldo started because I was freelancing for a long time. Straight out of college, went to Miami-Dade North back in 1980?
Yeah,
81. So anyway, I started freelancing right when I was in college, and then at some point, Hector, the co-creator of Baldo, was actually a client of mine. He worked for a magazine as an editor on the West Coast, and he was actually a client of mine. And that was back in 1997 or 98 when I started working with him. And then we developed a friendship, online. We never met, obviously, but I'd done a lot of work for the magazine, and then we started talking about different things. And he proposed the idea of coming up with a comic strip, and I said, sure, let's try it and see what happens. So we started working on it in late 1998, developed it through 1999, then submitted it to, I think it was like 7 different, the top 7 syndicates at the time. And oddly enough, man, we got interest from 2 syndicates, like serious interest from 2 syndicates. And I was expecting just to, get a lot of rejection letters. But we got interest from 2 syndicates, not just one, that wanted us to go ahead and develop it further for them. And we chose to go with Universal, just because they had come out with, I don't know if you're familiar with Boondocks or the Boondocks comic strip. They had launched the Boondocks, Universal did. I think it was right before they launched us. So I knew that they were cutting edge. They were looking to, put things out there that weren't already out on the market. They weren't afraid of that. So we went with them.
Oh, that's great.
And that was it. So they launched in April of 2000. So here we are, 22 years later, and 250 some odd papers nationwide. So
what's the average lifespan of a comic strip? Is it?
It depends. I mean, once you've got your foot in the door and you've got a good client list going, it could be decades. Because papers don't generally like a lot of change. Once you develop a fan base, they don't like pulling it out. If they ever try to pull out a strip, like some of these old ones that have been like Beetle Bailey or something that have been around for forever, try pulling one of those out, and you're going to hear about it.
Yeah.
So, once people get used to seeing it and reading it on a daily basis, it's hard to kind of get it removed and put something fresh and new in. So it's pretty difficult.
Is there some typical myths and misconceptions about what you do, your profession, what the public doesn't know, maybe how difficult it is or how easy it is or anything in particular?
Well, one of the myths is that we do online interviews without pants on. That's not I got my.
I thought that was true.
But I got my pants on. You got to take my word.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, please.
But anything that made it, I mean, obviously, people might think that you had instant success with that, but there are a lot of trial and tribulation. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, well, with the comic strip, we got really lucky. I mean, I'd read horror stories. I read, there weren't that many books, but I read like 3 or 4 books on syndication prior to us, or while we were working on it and developing it. And it wasn't a good outlook. I mean, the numbers, the odds were against us. And like I said, I was expecting rejection letters and then just moving on. But we got lucky. We had 2 syndicates right off the bat that expressed interest. We went with Universal. We went through, I think it was a 3-month development period to, expand on the strip and make sure that, because like when you turn in strips, when you submit strips to get syndication, for syndication, you're submitting like 4 to 6 or 8 weeks worth of work, which sounds like a lot. But I mean, if you've been working for 5 years to get this solid month and a half or 2 months worth of strips, and then if you get the deal, you got to do it on a daily basis. It's a daily grind. So they want to make sure that, that it's got legs, that all your best stuff, it wasn't submitted. And after that, you've got nothing left. So we went through a 3-month development period just to prove that, the concept, and still come up with ideas and stuff. So that was solid. That worked out. And we got the contract. And then, just as a side note, when we launched, like a successful strip will generally launch with like maybe 30, 35 strips, just to make it worthwhile for the syndicate. Because, you're splitting fees with the artist, and, there's a lot of promotion and marketing that goes on. So there's a certain, certain number of clients that they need to be able to pick up to make it worthwhile, not only for them, but for you as the creator. So when we launched with, I think it was like 98, 99 clients, which was their 4th largest launch in their history at the time. So, like you're talking about, like the only, we were up there with Calvin and Hobbes, for example, the Boondocks. What was the other one? I can't remember the other one. It was like another one, and then us. So we were like among the 4th top launches for them. So it was great coming out of the gate. So everybody was happy.
When you say clients, who are your
newspaper clients?
Newspaper clients.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because when you sell the comic strip, you're selling them to newspaper editors. So basically, they'll pick up, and then like we run 7 days a week. So we run the Monday through Saturday, and then the Color Sunday strip. And each one of those are considered separate sales. So like if the Miami Herald, for example, picks up Baldo dailies from Monday through Saturday, and they also pick up the Sunday, that's considered 2 different sales.
Oh,
wow.
Interesting.
Oh, wow.
So the beautiful part about syndication is that, you're able to, like, from a business standpoint, you're able to leverage what you're doing. Like I'm not doing any more work. Like when I did the strip and 100 clients picked us up out of the gate, I'm not doing any more work today that we're in 250 papers, but we're making more money. So it's a good way to leverage the time, because you're able to kind of expand and grow your business that way. The more papers that you get on and you sell to, obviously the more money you can make, and you're really not doing any more work.
Interesting. Yeah. There's got to be a lot of Hispanic artists and writers. Why do you think you're the first team to put all this together and be the first Hispanic syndicate? What's the second reason?
There were a lot of artists that had submitted, ideas. I mean, the syndicate told us. I mean, they had gotten, because we had a lot of these conversations, like, why haven't you run, a Hispanic family-centered strip yet? So they said, well, they had gotten a lot of submissions, and there were that we were aware of when we were developing the strip. There was like 3 or 4 that we knew that were online. They weren't picked up by syndicates, but they were trying to pick up an audience online, and they weren't great. I don't think they were, that great. The writing was not great. So I think it's just a combination. I mean, they were there, and they were getting submissions from Hispanic artists and writers. I just don't think that maybe the quality was there, or they weren't tapping into the right, the right subject matter, or and again, I think it has to do a lot with the timing of when we came out and when we submitted it. When we submitted our pitch to the syndicate, we had supplied them with all of the information, all the data, all the census data, the growth of the Hispanic market, the income levels. We had done a lot of that research for them, because we thought that if we just submit it, you're going to have a lot of these old white editors looking at this stuff and saying, "Yeah, there's not a market for this crap." If there was, there would have been one already or something. So we wanted to back it up with a lot of data that there was a market, a growing market there, and a lot of money behind it. So we submitted that to them with our pitch. And actually, when we got contracted and syndicated, all that same data that we had submitted to them, they had used all that same data in their promotional package when they were selling to editors. So we had done that part of the job for them. And I think that was a big part of it, is that we didn't allow control to be on their part. We took control of proving our idea and not depending on them to do it. So I think that might have been a large factor as well.
Did your homework.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot easier when you give them the information. You don't know who's looking at it. And, if you're looking at someone who just doesn't want to do the legwork and say, oh, whatever, I don't like it, or there's not a market for that, or, some of these people may not even know that their city has a large Hispanic audience and that it's growing. Mm. They may not be exposed to that information. So we exposed them to that information, showed them the facts, and, just to make sure that they were understanding what they were getting.
So I gotta ask you, as with comedians, you and your partner Hector Cantu have gone into some very relevant topics and satire and humor in your comic strip. For example, you had a series where one of your characters, Tia, got deported. And what are some of your favorite now go-to topics? Who picks the topics? And have you noticed an uptake in either pushback or kind of approval?
I really personally don't like a lot of the getting into a lot of politics. We, as a creator on the strip, we don't really tend to get into a lot of politics. It's kind of just supposed to be a fun, light family strip. Occasionally we'll do things if it's in the, if we're getting a lot of, there's a lot of talk in the news about it, like immigration or something like that, we'll touch on it. Like the one with Tia Carmen, we had like a lot of people. That was on April Fool's Day. I don't remember what year it was, but we had a lot of people freak out that how could we get Tia Carmen deported? They let Tia Carmen, and that was like the whole point. Like when they were deporting people or talking about deporting people that had been here like since they were 10 or whatever, because one of the relatives brought them over, like the Dreamers or something, where they've been here, for decades. They don't know anything other than the United States. So, our idea was to not necessarily hit somebody over the head and talk about this issue, but show a beloved character, because you'd be surprised at how attached people become to these characters. So to show one of these beloved characters being deported. So like if you don't know anybody personally, then you can relate to the character being deported. So like she's been there, the people love her, whatever. Now we deport her. And now people get all upset because, oh my God, how can you deport Tia Carmen? Well, if she's here illegally, she's going to get deported no matter how long she's been here, right? So, if that's what they're talking about. So, so we had a lot of fans kind of writing in, freaking out about, having her deported. How can we do this? And then, of course, it was an April Fool's, strip. So some people figured it out, some people didn't. So that's the way we like to tackle anything that's somewhat political. Like I said, we don't really like getting into a lot of political stuff just because you become a lightning rod for a lot of things. But I think if we do it in a way that's not blatant and obvious, just kind of skimming across the surface, approach it in a more creative way, I think it works out for us.
So I'm so curious to ask, and I know that you are very tech savvy, at least in the marketing and in social media world.
Why, thank you, Spencer.
Well, we've spent
Tech
a
is
lot
in
of
the
time
name.
figuring it out. But with that said, we're talking about newspapers. Not a lot of us read newspapers or the paper. We are online. So how has that changed for Baldo and how you guys manage your obviously your readership?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, newspaper readership started falling just prior to us getting launched.
Oh,
That's when like the reports started coming in. You can see the numbers starting to die out a little bit. That was 22 years ago. Everything online was becoming more mainstream. Um, and there was a cartoonist, I can't remember who it was, that got asked the same question. And I thought it was brilliant how he answered it. He said that it was like training your whole life for the major leagues and you finally make it, and then the stadiums start to close.
oh, God.
So it's like that in a sense, but I mean, it's still where the money is. I mean, if you can get enough clients, it's still where the money is. I mean, you're not going to make as much money online, or no one is, that I know of, no comic strip creator has been making more money online, just selling it online than selling it in papers. I mean, that's really still the way to go. And if you have, a decent number of clients, you're gonna do fine.
Have you retooled your approach to digital or social media
No, I mean
with
the
Baldo
syndicate.
or
No, the
anything else?
syndicate has an online department,
Mhm.
and they do a lot of that. I mean, we sell to Yahoo. Actually, I got a text from one of my son's moms, who I've known since like my son was like 4, because I used to coach their soccer team. So they've known each other forever. But she sent me a text just like a week and a half ago that she showed me a screenshot of Baldo, the Baldo comic strip, popped up on her MSNBC feed. And she said something about all these poor kids. They don't know they're surrounded. They've got access to I don't know, a celebrity or something ridiculous. But the syndicate does sell online to the online outlets and stuff like that. So we do have online sales as well, but they don't compare to the print, even though the print is dying. But I mean, there's still enough print out there to make it feasible, and probably still be out there for like another 7 to 10 years.
Huh.
Yeah, believe it or not.
It's funny, every time Carlos says the word syndicate, I think of organized crime and the mafia. Right?
Thank God I'm not the only one.
When the syndicate showed me their initial contract, I thought it was an organized crime. Are you kidding me?
I'm glad you
A lot of
thought the same.
negotiations went into that one.
Oh, waiting for the Godfather of comics to show up.
Yeah. I felt like I was watching too many crime movies because I'm like, God, my brain keeps going there.
Yeah.
Hey, who comes up with a lot of the content? You're the illustrator. Do you leave a lot of that up to Hector, or do you guys collaborate? How does that work?
Now these days, I just leave it up to Hector. I mean, when the first 5, 7, 8 years, obviously, I wanted to make sure that what we talked about stayed true, and I didn't want it to divert off course or whatever into something that maybe I didn't want. So we had a lot of collaboration early on in the first 7 to 8 years, just so that we learned what was a good area. What was, like Hector would probably tend to get into a lot of more political justice kind of warrior stuff, where I'm not like wanting to go there. So there's a lot of pullback on that. But I mean, nowadays it's just mostly him. I mean, we'll talk every now and then about certain storylines or something and throw ideas back and forth. But it's primarily him at this point. I mean, he's making his 50% of the check. I figured, let him earn it. And then he writes stuff, he sends it to me, and then, I'll read through it. I'll make changes. I'll make suggestions, or I'll kill something if I just don't think, we'll go back and forth. And something will have to get killed if we can't decide on a decent way to portray it. So it's a collaborative process.
So on that note, has he ever written some that you look at as an illustrator going, how the heck am I going to draw this?
No, not really. I mean, like he'll draw, like he'll write out a script or whatever, and what maybe it's he's got it going for, like, let's say 4 panels, because the strips are the dailies typically are 3 to 4 panels.
Hmm.
So if he's got something in 4 panels, and I think the layout and everything in the story, the timing of it would work better in 3. We'll just like knock it down to 3 and maybe combine 2 of the panels or something, stuff like that. But he's never come up with anything that I couldn't figure out how to visualize.
Hmm. So
So cool.
are you going to be like some of the other comic strips? Are we going to see you on TV, a little TV network? Is Baller going to have its own little network show?
It's funny you should bring that up. When Baldo launched in 2000, just a quick story. Hector and I had
Yeah.
let me see. Hector and I had never met when we developed the Baldo strip. Like I said, he
That's
was on the
crazy.
West Coast. I was here in Florida, and we had developed this thing. We'd worked together. We developed this thing, submitted it to the syndicate, got it,
There it is again.
got the syndicate,
The mafia.
got it, got it approved, got it sold. It ran, and Hector and I had never met face to face. So within that first week that the Baldo strip appeared in papers, within that first week we fielded, I think it was like 5 or 6 calls from the West Coast, from TV studios and movie studios that wanted to talk to us about possibly taking this Baldo concept and creating either an animated series or a live person series or a movie or something around it. So we had to jump on a plane and go to California and meet with, it was like I think it was like 4 or 5 different studios. If I remember correctly, one was, I don't even think they're around anymore. One was Big Ticket, which used to create a lot of ethnic shows like Moesha back in the day, Moesha and some other shows. Universal, not Universal, Univision.
Univision.
We had to meet with the CAA, which is the Creative Artists Agency. So they represent different artists like David Letterman, Oprah, whatever. So we had to meet with them. So anyway, we had to meet with a few people. So we jumped on a plane, went to California. The first time we met was in the airport when we arrived in LA. So that was kind of cool. So from there, we decided to go with Univision. We signed a contract with them. They actually developed and produced 13 Baldo animated episodes, both in English and in Spanish, for airing, which never made it to the air. But we produced them, we have them, and now they're kind of outdated and don't look great to look at, but it was an experience. And we also signed a creative deal with them. I learned a lot from that experience to see how Hollywood works and how getting TV material or anything like animation series, getting that off the ground. It was really pretty interesting. It was a learning experience. So anyway, they gave us the contract for that. They bought the rights to it, and they also gave us, I think it was a 2-year, creative contract, which meant that basically I think we got paid like $100,000 each for 2 years. And it basically just meant that whatever creative other ideas that we might come up with, we needed to give them first rights of refusal. So, any other concept that we had come up with, we could show it to them first. They could either buy the rights to it or let us shop it around somewhere else. But anyway, for that privilege, we got paid. So that was cool.
Would you ever revisit that and in the future be on TV?
We've tried getting the Baldo TV series. We're still in talks with an agent trying to get it done. Trying to either sell the ones that we already have in packaged up and package it up as a deal on a streaming service, or to produce new episodes. So I mean, we're always in talks with agents and and people to see, where there might be an opportunity for that. Up to this point, it hasn't happened.
So yeah, I'm hoping it does one of these days, and maybe now with the transition of so much more media outlets or
Yeah, you have a lot of streaming services now that
streaming.
didn't exist before,
Yeah.
where it leaves the opportunity to kind of get things on, and where they're going to buy the rights to it and kind of just sell you pay you per episode that they air. So we'll see.
I'm sure the syndicate can leverage a deal for you.
Yeah, I'm sure the syndicate can take a big piece of the pie.
Forget about it. Hey, let me
make them an offer they can't refuse.
That's right. Hey, let me ask you. I know how your work ethic is. It's truly incredible, and you've always been that way. Well, I guess we've always been that way. But how do you find balance, though? Work life, health, because without you having to stand up, he's built like a brick house, man. He trains, he does all that good stuff, But because I know you don't have pants on, so don't lie.
Right. No, I'm not gonna stand up. Don't worry about
it. Work-life balance. How do you do it, buddy? And he's been married to a great wife, by the way. She's cooler than him.
She's amazing.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Amazingly beautiful.
Yeah, I got one of those.
He does. Hey, Michelle is way cooler than Terry is. But anyway, that's another story.
I'm okay with that.
That's what I told you.
Wait, Lance is getting on there. Lance
Lance did a drive-by. What was it?
Yeah. From the syndicate.
Yeah. He's gonna gun you down.
Big Brother is watching.
That's right.
Yeah.
What was the question? How work-life balance?
You know it.
The whole reason why I ever not a whole lot of people know this, but the whole reason why I wanted to work for myself from the get-go, like I said, I started freelancing when I was in college, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. And the whole reason why I wanted to freelance and work for myself, because was growing up, my dad wasn't around. Like my mom and dad got divorced when I was in, I think, third grade or second grade. So from third grade on, they put me in a military school up north. My dad was here in Miami. I lived in New Jersey. So I was in a boarding school for 3 years in a military school up north in upstate New York. And I was just not that I kind of processed it or that I was aware of processing it, but I just always knew that not having my dad around, I kind of felt that. And especially like in middle school and stuff like that, you're becoming of age and stuff like that. So my dad wasn't around a lot. So I just figured that, whatever I did, I knew that I wanted to be around, for my kids. And I felt like the only way I can do that is like working for myself or having that kind of control over my own time and freedom. So that was just always a very large driving force for me, whether I was aware of it or not. It was just in the back of my brain somewhere. So everything I did was to get me to that point. So as far as work-life balance, I know that I coached a lot of my kids' teams when they were younger, growing up in soccer, flag football. I was always there for all their games. That's something that was always a priority for me. Also, I could be a workaholic, because I enjoy what I do, and both you guys can probably relate to this. Because I enjoy what I do, dude, I can work for 12, 14 hours straight and not even think about it, because it'll just I'll just hit a zone, and I'm in it, and before you know it, the whole day's gone. I haven't eaten lunch. I didn't eat dinner. I didn't call anybody. It's like you just become absorbed in what you're doing. So it was something that I always had to kind of, especially after getting married and having kids and stuff. It's always something that I had to keep an eye on. But working out of the house, helps a lot. I don't have to leave. I'm always here. If anything comes up, I can, put whatever work I'm working on, put it on hold for a little bit, take care of business, come back, and maybe work a little later that evening if I have to. But that's the way I wanted my life to unfold in that sense. But at the same time, I answered this question on my Drawn by Success channel a few years back when we were talking about, somebody interviewed me and they were talking about, the same thing about work-life balance. And I said, to become successful, and this is just my point of view, work-life balance sometimes is somewhat of a myth sometimes, because I think, like, as an artist growing up, I devoted a lot of time to drawing, right? Like, all my free time was just drawing because I enjoyed it. But there was a lot of hours that were put in. So, like, even now, whether you're working your own business or you're working for someone else, if there's anything that you want to learn to do and do it well, you almost have to be obsessive about it. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to all of a sudden learn about investing in real estate or whatever, you have to kind of dedicate time. And sometimes you have to put those other things aside so you can kind of do it enough to build up enough momentum to be successful at it. Otherwise, you're kind of just always dabbling and never really kind of spinning your wheels and never really going anywhere. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think work-life balance is good in a sense, but for certain times in your life, certain things have to be prioritized if they're important enough, and you need to go balls to the wall, to get it done, and then reconnect with the other stuff later. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay.
I could be wrong. What the hell do I know?
We're seeing a pattern among successful guests. Terry, does that remind you of one of our recent ones that just immersed themselves?
What was the information gathered there? What was the takeaway?
It was really simply about as you put it, balls to the wall, or completely immersing yourself into a project that you are so interested and passionate about that time slows down. You don't even realize, and you just blow by, several hours. And, those of us who are referred to as workaholics, tend to do that. And it's because we love what we do, not because because we have to do it. It's somebody several months ago turned to me, a young kid, and he goes, "Oh, are you retired? You're retired, right?" And I thought, retired? First I thought, do I look that bad? Do I look that old? And then I realized, I go, how would I could never retire. How do you retire from something you love?
Right.
That's the passion.
Yeah, I was talking to someone not too long ago about the same thing, and I'm like, why do people retire at 65? Because I'm like, you and I, Spencer, we're 61.
Yeah.
And I don't ever see myself retiring, because there's always going to be something, whether it's the strip or marketing or something else, other interests that I have that I'm always going to be putting, pedal to the metal and wanting to learn and expand and be successful at something, whether it be cartooning, or if, I get tired of that, it'll be something else. But there's always going to be something that I want to pursue and improve on and develop. So I don't see why people are retiring at all. I mean, when I see people retired at 60 some odd years old, I'm like, okay, they have another 15, maybe 20 years ahead of them, and they're not doing anything. All they're doing is getting out of shape and just, I don't know. 65 is just too young to retire. I don't know.
Too young.
Wait, I guess it's different when you're not pursuing something that you don't enjoy. I'm not going to say love, because I don't think you have to necessarily love what you do. But if it's something that you're interested in or willing to learn,
yes,
that it's all part of creativity and problem solving, in life. So it's not just about falling in love with what you do, but how to make something work. That challenge of making something work. And I don't think I'll ever that's not ever going to go away from me.
So Dr. Terry and I are healthcare providers, but how is, and I know I have an idea, but your approach to health. So we talked about your occupation, we talked about passion of work and so on, but tell me about your perspective on health.
I just always enjoyed remaining active. I knew I got 3 boys. You got 2, Spencer, so you can relate.
I have 2.
And so you have 2, so that you know of.
Yeah, you never know. I mean,
No, you
No,
know,
I'm.
I've got 3 boys, and I always figured, I wanted to be the kind of dad that can keep up with my kids. You know what I mean? Um, so I've always remained. There were times, like I said, going back to focus and balance. There were times, when I was when I was freelancing in Miami, and I had developed a full service art studio in Miami. It was actually one of the first full service art studios in Miami. We're in South Florida that catered to advertising agencies. So I had like someone doing in the beginning, it was just me doing airbrush, storyboard art, all the services, all the creative services that an advertising agency might need. So after a few years, I started bringing on people that were doing, that would do the airbrush art, the realistic airbrush art, storyboarding, other styles of art that I didn't necessarily want to do anymore, so that I can focus on the cartooning, which is really what I enjoyed the most. Um, so back then, I mean, when I was building that business, I had a sleeping bag under my desk. I mean, there'd be nights where a lot of nights where I'd pull all nighters, where I wasn't taking care of my health in the least. I mean, I was like, I had to get the work, I had to produce the work, deliver the work, so I was doing everything. I had to market if I wanted to stay in business. So I was like wearing a lot of hats, and I'll tell you, my health suffered for it. And that was like probably like 3 or 4 years where I didn't work out at all. I mean, I was just like, I wasn't eating right. I just was like, wasn't getting enough sleep. Um, but I've learned that keeping active is important for my own creative sustainability. To remain to stay physically active. So I don't. I'm not going to tell you I never miss a workout. I miss a workout here and there, but I always get back to it. My kids, when they were younger, they've always been either wrestling, doing jujitsu, working out in sports. I coach a couple of their teams. We have a whole gym set up in the garage. Have a lot of rubber Olympic plates, probably like 800 pounds. We have the rack. So my kids have been training in there since middle school. And then we started doing. I know that Dr. Terry there does Spartan races as well. Am I correct? You got the beast, you got the beast shirt on. Got a couple of those. So yeah. So I mean, we started. So we started doing like as a family. We started. And this was probably like 4 years ago. We started doing the Spartan races. And I figured it was a good way for us to train together and have like a goal, and it would keep us from falling off, for any like really extended period of time, because we knew we had a race coming up in a few months or whatever. So we did that. We've been doing that for like the last 4 years. I think this year is the first year in like the last 4 years that we haven't done anything other than like, what was it, 1920, when COVID hit, that they shut down for that year.
Right.
But it gave us, something to work for. I think that's important from a physical standpoint, is to be able to train, but also to be able to have something to train for. Just to keep you motivated. So
Totally agree.
I try to stay active as much as I can with me and my boys, and again, they've like my oldest one now is living on his own. He just moved out in October with his girlfriend, so now he's not, he's busy working and holding on a job and paying bills. So now his training is kind of, slacked off a little bit, and that's part of life.
Yeah.
You're finding your balance. I always remind him every weekend. I always remind him, try to get back into it if you can, even if it's just 30 minutes 3 times a week,
Right.
just so that you're not letting go of it completely and falling completely off.
So on that, especially with the Spartan races and the training and all that, we have such in society, I think it's gotten a little softer. We have such a fear of failure.
Yeah.
And yet we learn, us older people or some of the other people understand how important failure is. What have you learned? What's some of the biggest failures you've had that you've really learned from to kind of inspire other people to push through that fear of failure?
In regards to physical activity or just professional?
No, just life, your business,
Yeah, I don't. One of the things I learned early on, is the mental shift. And I know that Spencer follows some gurus out there, and they talk a lot about your mindset and stuff like that. And I think early on, I learned that you can't look at failure as failure. You have to look at failure as a learning event. If you look at it as failure, it does a rewiring in your own mind that sets you up to give up. I think if you look at it as just a learning experience, it's not a failure, it's just a learning experience. It's more data that you've got for whatever it is, whether it be business or athletic event. It's just data that you're collecting. You say, okay, this is where I fell short. This is where I need to make adjustments. It doesn't mean I can't do it, right? It just means that I need to make modifications or improve in certain areas. So it's just a matter of identifying where those areas are. And especially in businesses, like, you can't look at, when you try something, you can't look at it and say, oh, I failed. This doesn't work. No, it didn't work. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. It means you just got to take that information, process it, and go at it again. The real question is how long do you need to do it before you realize you're not going to do it? And to me, the answer is as long as you have to. I think when you throw in the towel is basically you weren't fully committed. I think anybody that's successful at anything, it doesn't matter how many failures they've had. They're going to make it work one way. They're going to find a way to make it work.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, Carlos, in closing, because that's a beautiful segue to bring up your thoughts and philosophies on when somebody's dealt with an unfortunate circumstance. Do you have any suggestions or thoughts? Because I know you and I and Dr. Terry were all into the inspirational, motivational thing. What would it be for you?
Cat back there.
What's that?
It's a cat. You see
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that cat where I thought they were going to knock over those photographs. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I interrupted. Yeah.
No. I was just saying, when there's a lot, especially after COVID, people are remorseful, regretful, and think that they were dealt some bad cards. And what are your thoughts? What would you share with someone based on that kind of perspective? Similar to what you were alluding to a moment ago.
I teach this cartooning course. It's a 4-week every Saturday during the summers for 4 weeks, and it's for an organization called Arts for All up here in Palm Beach. And basically, they have a lot of adults and kids who are physically and mentally challenged, autism, a lot of that kind of thing. So we do a little cartooning course, whatever. So working with them has made me realize, and I've been working with that program probably for the last 7 years. We didn't do anything during COVID, of course, but working with a lot of those individuals got me to appreciate how lucky we are. And honestly, I don't care what your circumstances, there's always going to be someone out there that's got it worse. And unless you want to start playing that pissing match to see who's got the bigger problems, you just got to take the cards that you're dealt with, and just make the best of it. This is what you've got. And stop focusing on the things that you don't have and start focusing on the things that you do have. And I think that's a big problem now is like people focus a lot on the problem and what they don't have or what's not available. And they fail to see all that they do have. I think if they just kind of refocus to what they do have, I think you'll find that how lucky you really are.
That's great. I really believe that. That's a beautiful ending to an understanding of how we can deal with some of the adversities that go on in life and how important it is. It's all our perspective.
Yeah.
It's the spin we place on our own stuff, and it's Thanks for sharing that.
And also, what you're allowing inside your head, right? Because I mean, you brought up, everything that's going on now. I mean, a lot of people allow the media and all the crap that's going on and all the different narratives that people are pushing for their own agendas, allow that to take up a lot of space in their own heads, and allow someone else to control how they see things or how they perceive the outside world, outside themselves. Instead of just kind of just turning all that crap off, because none of that's going to get you anywhere. The only thing that's going to get you somewhere is figuring out what you want and what resources you already have available to you, and then what you need to do moving forward, and stop complaining and bitching and moaning about, oh, this person has this and this person. Look, everybody comes from some kind of deficit. My family came here. I came here at 8 months old to the States. My family left Cuba, or I made me leave Cuba in 1961. I was 8 months old. They were trying to get out of Cuba when Castro was taken over. They couldn't get visas to get out. So what'd they do? They put me on a plane with a complete stranger to the United States with a card around my neck that basically said my name, and I was here to meet my grandmother, and had her name. And this lady was supposed to deliver me to family members here in Miami. My parents were lucky enough to get out of Cuba. I think it was like 7 or 8 months, 6 or 7 months later. They were lucky enough to get out. But had things not worked out, I could have never seen my parents again. They could have never seen me again. So my parents coming here, leaving their home country, they left everything they owned, everything they had. They came here with nothing. They left everything behind in Cuba. The whole life that they had built, they had to come here from scratch in a country that they didn't even know the language. So we all have come from adversity. And it's just what you do with it. One of the things about immigrants, a lot of times, I see a lot of immigrants come here with absolutely nothing other than a dream, because they come from some place that didn't have the freedom to be able to pursue the things that they didn't have opportunity at all. So when they come here, it doesn't matter how many cards are stacked against them. They have the ability, the opportunity to build something. Where they came from didn't have that. And I think a lot of people that are born here don't see that. They see the issues, they see the problems, they like bitching, complaining about stuff, but they don't realize that they're born in a place where they have the opportunity. No one's keeping them from accomplishing anything other than themselves. So whatever roadblocks you put up are the ones that you choose to put up. So again, I think it's just a matter of being appreciative about where you are and where you truly, a lot of people complaining out in the streets. I mean, you have the freedom to do that. In some countries, you get shot or become imprisoned for expressing those thoughts. So I just think it's you have to be a little smarter about how you spend your time.
That's great, my friend. Thank you. That was a good close. Terry probably just lost. He's probably quite excited about all that. I'm going to tell you that we're going to wrap up and let you know that this was great. I think we should catch up on a personal basis, as we do. Thanks for being on.
Well, I wanted to congratulate you both for having this show. I think it's awesome.
Oh, thank you, Carlos. You're amazing, and we're going to try and make it down to see Spence and hopefully this year, and we'll have to hook up and say hi to you. So I appreciate your time, man. Oh, I love it. Thank you for your time. You're fantastic.
Thanks for bringing me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Crackin' Backs podcast. We hope you enjoyed, and make sure you follow our Instagram at Crackin' Backs Podcast. Catch new episodes every Monday. See you next time.